I am Lisa Singer, the Deputy Editorial Director at Media Post, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential marketers today. And with me, I have Ophira Adut, and she is the co-founder and CEO of Astrostyle.com. Welcome, Ophira.
Hi.
Hey, well, it's so great to have you. And I know, you hear the introduction, the most amazing women marketers today. And, then I say, okay, you are the CEO of astrostyle.com, which before we get into, obviously you are your biggest marketer and we're going to talk about that. But I want to let people know really who you are because obviously, so you reach millions of people worldwide, giving them astrology advice with your sister. So you have a twin
Mhm.
sister, Tally, and you guys also are with Elle. You give advice on for Elle from Elle magazine, and
Yep.
also you are both best-selling authors. So you have books that are also helping with advice. I know there's one on mom. What's
Yeah, mom astrology.
astrology.
Exactly.
Like I could just continue on and keep talking about everything you're doing. So, but I do want to incorporate you and let you
Oh,
say some
oh,
stuff.
that's
But
fine.
no, the thing is, and I have to bring up, you now have a show coming out on Amazon Prime. It's the first reality show on astrology, and it's a love reality show. So, first of all, congratulations. That is amazing. Talk about that. What it was like to put
You.
that together.
Absolutely. So I did not mean to be an astrologer with my career. I went to the University of Michigan, studied graphic design. My sister and I both went to art school, but we discovered astrology along the way, and it was so eerily accurate about people's personalities that it was a hobby that turned into an accidental career. And it turns out people really gravitate to it. So it's kept us busy ever since with columns and books and that kind of thing. But um, Amazon Prime is now, well, we a couple of years ago, right before the pandemic, approached a producer about the idea of doing an astrology matchmaking show because they were so popular, and that show Love is Blind had just come out and was a huge hit on Netflix. And we thought, what if you put astrology into this? And so we worked with them, and Amazon ended up picking it up for Prime Video. And it was that was a marketing experience extraordinaire, taking something that's so personal, someone's horoscope, and trying to make it interesting and relevant to anyone who wants to watch in a TV format. So it's a really cool creative challenge.
Yeah, well, and talk about you touched on a little bit. Let's back up to. I know that initially you I believe launched a magazine,
Yeah.
and obviously you have that entrepreneurial spirit, so that's been there. But you said it evolved. Eventually, you discovered astrology, and so you crossed over, and that's where you put your focus.
Mhm.
Still, a lot of people have these passions, or these, where they say, okay, this is what I want to have base my life with, but they don't necessarily turn it into a successful career. Talk about that
Yeah.
path and how you were able to do that.
Yeah, well, I think most people see the finished product of stuff and think that everyone is or everything is an overnight success. I am the daughter of an immigrant and grandparents who were immigrants, so everybody in our family is very scrappy. Our dad got fired from his job when we were 15 and then immediately opened up a landscaping business. He had lived in Israel and grown up on a kibbutz and just never looked back. And when I was 15, he said, never work for anyone except for yourself if you don't have to, because you won't have freedom. So that always stayed with me. Um, but I think that anyone who wants to turn their passion into a business should not expect to just quit their day job immediately. I mean, I built websites and used all my art school and design skills and made things for other people and cobbled together an income while building the astrology brand. I didn't go, I'm going to build a brand that takes over the world. I was like, oh, someone wants me to write horoscopes for their magazine? Fun, sure, why not? That'll pay 60% of my bills. I guess I'll build some websites to supplement the rest. And oh, here's a speaking engagement. I'll do that. And so you have to be willing to do, don't attach this sort of pride to it and be like, well, if I'm not doing this 100% of my time, I must not be legitimate. We have all this chorus of ridiculous voices in our head that just tell, be authentic, be transparent. Like, just because you're not doing it around the clock doesn't mean you're not real. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, when you started, because you've been now doing this for 20 years, it's a different game today that someone else who's, because we do have these overnight successes with, especially
Mhm.
with influencers, and just putting yourself out there on social media. But I think that can be deceiving because, again, you've built a brand and you've built this
Mhm.
tangible career, tangible business, and that took time, as you said, and you had to really devote a lot to that while doing other things. So today,
Mhm.
someone, how would you? 'Cause I'm sure you would have been very thrilled to have been able to leverage social media when you were first getting
Yeah.
started. So talk about that today, starting out. How do you think you'd do it differently?
How would I do it differently? Yeah, when I started out, it was the early 90s. So the internet was just about to kind of pop up. I was at the University of Michigan, and luckily they had really great computer resources that nobody wanted to use, especially not in the art school. It was like, how could you even think of replacing a pencil and a paintbrush and these Winsor Newton oil paints? I was like, well, I will. I'm going to play around with these tools. And so I think for people today, yeah, you really, how can I say this? I don't want to say something cheesy like think of yourself as a brand, because we're well beyond that now. But I do think you have to keep learning and trying out different platforms. I mean, I am now 49 years old and I tried out Twitch. I'm doing some TikToks. I've got a Discord server. I'm like, whatever the nerds are doing, I'm going to try it out once, because your message doesn't have to change, but there are all these different mediums and you have to be willing to have a growth mindset about it and never say, oh, I'm too old for that. I don't do technology. I don't do this. Like, learn. Anyone can learn.
Yep. Don't put yourself in a box. Just
Yeah.
I love what you said, even just starting out when you wanted to try all these different tools that were available to you, and being open to doing that, I think is really key for anyone, whether you're in a working for a major company or whether you're just trying to launch your own business. So
Mm-hmm.
I do want to ask you, I have to, I am a twin as well.
Oh, you do? No way. Oh my gosh.
It's a twin brother. So
Okay.
everyone always says, "Oh, do you look alike?" Like, I hope we don't. Well, one of us wouldn't be too happy about that. But no, so it is. I do think it's a cool thing to be a twin, especially when we were younger. I definitely felt that connection. But to be an identical twin with your twin sister Tally, talk about that growing up as an identical twin and how that may have evolved to today. Because I'm wondering if there might have been a few like, okay, you got to separate yourself younger, and then, but obviously now you are very close, or has it always been that way?
Definitely it's, as we've really been doing like little businesses together since we were kids, from sharing a paper route where she took one side of the street and I did the other, to like shared babysitting clients for our magazine. So it's definitely, um, she now lives in Seattle and I'm in New York, but we see each other. Well, before the pandemic, it was once a month. Now, we just talk every day, but we have discovered that we have really different sweet spots. Like, she prefers to kind of go into the artistic creative writing weeds more than I do, and I love to do like the marketing operation technology. Like, so we do both do write all the writing and everything for our brand, but we're learning how to, like, well, why don't you take maybe a little more of that and I'll take what you create and maximize it, especially as technology has, and all these different social media platforms have become part of the marketing strategy. It's like, you can't just be the talent anymore. You have to be your own, like you said at the beginning, you have to be your own marketer. So that's actually, to your last question, something that I would have maybe done differently is like learned more. I learned as I went, and I am a scrappy Sagittarius, so we didn't kind of like it that way. But I probably would have gotten more training instead of having to always learn everything hands-on. I would recommend, like, now there are so many classes that you can take, from General Assembly to Skillshare to all these places to learn things. So I would tell people, just to take some of those, because I think that my sister and I probably didn't individuate as quickly as we could have. And so that's always it's always a process for twins.
Because I did in my high school, we did have identical twin sisters, and it was, as I said, it was very different. I get the twin connection in the sense that I think as children we were more protective of each other, my brother and myself, and
Yeah,
but still we were very much different people, and we are extremely different people today.
I
But
bet.
the twin sisters that I knew were always, were being compared or being like, I'm just curious if
Yeah.
you were able
That
to.
did happen to us and still does, and it's definitely annoying. Well, people are always asking us, like, how do I tell you apart? Or are you guys exactly alike? And I'm like, I don't know. I can only see her. I don't know how to tell us apart. I'm the worst person to ask. You're the one who can see both of us and compare, I think I look like her. The best thing about it is that I hate shopping and she loves it. So I just let her buy all my clothes for me. But yes, we do get compared, and sometimes we do feel like, if we like diverge on a business, like, I tend to be more like let's just try it. And she's like, well, wait a minute, we have a plan. So we usually have like one twin fight before, it's like a 24 hours of twin fighting, we call it, before a decision can be reached, because I'm either being way too entrepreneurial and too much of a risk taker, or she's being too careful and cautious and fearful of change sometimes. Other times it's the other way around, but that's usually what happens.
Why you guys work so well together? I mean, I think it's that balance. Like you said, you take care of the marketing side of the tech side and that kind of thing, and she.
Exactly.
That's
Luckily, we have enough of a difference there that, like, we're not fighting over turf, and it usually really complements each other very well. So, yeah.
no, that's great. Well, I saw that your mission, in terms of the astrology side, is really to empower lovers through astrology to have creative lives and to create passion and also
Mhm.
to create purpose. So I'm
Yeah.
curious for you, how are you creating a life of purpose for yourself?
God, I mean, just by always being tuned in to what I love doing. Astrology is the topic of my business, but I think by being a lifelong learner, I love learning about marketing and tech and business and new ways of, really creative ways of getting a message to people. I think astrology is an amazing tool. I started out very much as a skeptic, but I was curious. I mean, a skeptic is a curious non-believer, not a cynic. So as a skeptic about everything, I was like, I like to try it before I either buy it or deny it. So, um, to me, it's a tool that, like, bizarrely has been correct again and again. It's not just, the newspaper horoscope. You literally, at your moment of birth, all the planets are arranged in this map, around where you were on the earth when you were born. And it's this pattern that shockingly is almost like the instruction manual that they say people don't come with, but we actually do. So, um, I love sharing that tool, because there is a part of your birth chart that shows your purpose in life, that shows what, if whether you believe in past lifetimes or not. I'm sure this isn't the typical subject matter of this, these interviews, but hey, why not throw a little
I'm open to
mysticism?
any subject matter. So
Yeah, I love
I
it.
actually am a fan of astrology. I do believe that stars align, and no, do I mean, not that I haven't, wanting to like read my horoscope every day or whatever, but
Mhm.
I don't necessarily, I think that's fun and that's a curiosity. But I do think when it's used as a science, there is a way to, as you said, sort of kind of map out a person, and it's not going to dictate them because we obviously control what we do,
Right.
but it can help us maybe go to where we're best aligned, or where, what maybe we're confused which direction to go. It can help us, where would we maybe benefit the most, where would we do the best.
Exactly. It's like a guidance system. It's like your GPS can tell you a route to take, but you could still opt to take another route, but it might let you know accurately that, you might run into some extra traffic there or some obstacles. So that's how it should be used. You always have free will, but it's, it gives you some sort of parameters. And I read somewhere that the average person makes 35,000 decisions a day. And that's a whole lot. So if there's anything that can help reduce that decision fatigue, when you brought up, passion and purpose, I think everybody wants those things in our lives, but we're afraid of making one bad decision that has a domino effect. It doesn't just affect us, it affects all the people around us. We don't live in silos, most of us. So a lot of people, they're not necessarily trying to play it safe or not follow their passions, but you know, they're assessing the risk. Like, is it worth doing that? So the people that have come to us for advice are usually like, when is a good time, or is it an okay time? And usually their birth chart and their reading will validate what they already kind of felt. It doesn't usually surprise people. It's like, okay, I kind of had this knowing, and that confirms it. And that's when you know that any kind of a divination system is a good one. If you get a reading that feels wrong to you in your gut, then it's probably a bad reading.
I had a reading done early 20s, just moved to New York. It was amazing. And he like taped it. And I was just like, did you talk to my parents? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he knew such specific things about me and my twin brother and, the person in my, the man I was seeing at that time. And it was just
Yeah.
like, oh, friends, whatever. And it was amazing. And it was, again, he took so much more to it than just, like my handwriting, he took my
Oh, wow.
birth date, my time of birth, handwriting from people who were important to me. Like, he really did a lot. But it's just like, so I do believe in that. Like, there was things that he said that, I mean, I always did anyway, but that really confirmed it to me, that I think it's just such an exciting world. And that's what I was sort of wanting to ask. How did you get into, like, you can, anyone, not anyone, but people can say, I want to get into astrology, but you actually understand it. Did you have to, I mean, you said you didn't really take courses. So how did you learn these skills?
Yeah. So what happened was I was getting curious about it more so in college. And then my boyfriend in college bought me the gift of a birth chart, which you need your time, date, and place of birth. You can plug it in. We actually have a calculator on our website at astrostyle.com/birth chart for anyone who wants to go do a free one. And that spits out this whole map. And so he gives me this 30-page booklet that was like, oh my God, exactly the way you said. I was like, what? I've been fighting my whole life to be an individual, and now I'm that easy to figure out. But no, I'm kidding. And at the same time, it also like made me feel very special as an individual. So I was like, I've got to see if this works. So I got a little piece of software. This was in the 90s, but luckily I was working at the University of Michigan IT department, one of my side hustles. So me and one other woman, and that woman just happened to be into astrology. I think there might be a correlation between IT, computer science nerdiness, and astro nerdiness, because it's all about like figuring things out. And so she gave me this little piece of shareware, it was called, and I put it on my computer at home and started plugging in my friends and reading the descriptions. And so I've a photographic memory, and so does my sister. We just quickly remembered it. And then there've been a lot of amazing books written by the quote unquote baby boomer generation. I mean, they had to do astrology with pencil and paper. So there are incredible books to learn. Anyone can really teach themselves. And so just testing it out on people, a lot of, yeah, curiosity. Yeah.
I think when people do follow their passion, which I'm not actually, most people do, I think, at least a lot of the women that I speak with, and I think that's why they become the success that they are, is because ultimately down deep, what they're following is their passion. I mean, they've made choices, for other reasons, but I think that's what their North Star is. So
Yeah.
with that, though, that all usually leads to maybe a setback or, something when you're, especially for what you were doing, as you said, you always had to kind of keep that side hustle to keep going because it was
Mhm.
sort of uncharted for you.
Mhm.
Was there a moment, or was there sort of that setback that almost, you kind of hit that wall and said, I don't know if I can get back up? And then what did you do to get past that?
Yeah, I mean, I've only had really two full-time jobs. One was um at a magazine, and the real problem for me was getting to work on time. Not because I'm lazy or sleeping in, but because the muse just strikes as soon as I get my coffee buzz. And it was painful for me to tear myself away from my coffee cup and all these ideas that were flowing that I wanted to put into the articles I was writing for the magazine. And it was so frustrating for me that I couldn't explain that. I'm like, I'm not late. I'm actually just like not interrupting the divine inspiration that's flowing to me. But, try telling that to your boss when you're 27, right? Sure, sure. Did you go out last night
I was gonna
dancing?
say, you sure you just didn't have a late night?
Exactly. It's like, well, actually, yes, I did that too. But so but I think you know, I may have drifted off your question just thinking about that, but
How did you get
uh,
through that? Like to
how
move.
did I get through it? I just I think I was like, I can't. You just get to a point where you're like, ugh, I can't do this anymore. I'd rather blah blah blah. But I usually made myself an exit strategy with some technology. I was able to leave the job that wasn't satisfied. It was I loved what I was doing, but I hated how I was doing it. So that was when the technology skills, you want to have a kind of a 1% skill that others don't have at the um and that was for me building websites at that time too, was like have something that you can do to get as a bridge job to get yourself out of there to build a new path. It doesn't even have to be what your passion is. It's just um as long as you enjoy it and you get the conditions that you want. So don't it's not always a going from point A to point B. Yeah.
Like, because where you had to before, it wasn't a good fit because you were having to be in, 9 to 5 job or whatever the hours were. Whereas maybe building websites, it gave you the flexibility to then
Yeah.
put the time there. But when you were inspired, you put the time there. And
Exactly. And I realized like what I loved about doing websites was I actually felt empowered. I could be a leader with the clients that I was working with. I could use my best skills that were actually diminished and suppressed and not valued in an office setting, like being entrepreneurial and self-sufficient. And, like, I don't need someone to tell me to sit at my desk and write. Like, I actually had already sold a business at age 26 by the time I entered this job. And it was like, I was just like, this is just not a fit for me. So if you're feeling that something's not a fit, like it's not. And you don't want to, but a lot of people just start telling themselves that they don't have any other options and you better stick with this until something else comes along. But that's just not really how the universe works. Like sometimes it does, but usually you have to show some initiative. Like, I'm willing to be vulnerable and not just stay in this safe, comfortable thing that's killing my soul. I'm willing to put myself out there or recognize where I don't have the skills or credentials and then put in the time to get those instead of being entitled and bratty and pissed off all the time.
yeah, now, I mean, I think, there's this, like you said, you do it in a smart way and, you had that exit plan. It's not like, okay,
Mhm.
this is my job and now I'm going to starve. It's basically, okay, what's my exit plan? And figure out a way that fits into your life. So, and I think that's
Yeah.
because I think ultimately, if you're not following your passion, you don't want to look back and say, what did, here I am. Although I talk with women too who start fresh at, 40 or, you know what I mean? And
Anytime. I
never,
treat my business like I'm starting a new business every day because I have had to. We've made it through at least 3 generations of print publishing and web 1.0 when we started. to Web 2 and having to have a new website with ad monetization, ad tech, all of that. Now, Web 3 in the metaverse is going to change a lot, already is. People, know maybe we're not like turning our website into a virtual reality site, but people's attitudes about how they interact with brands are different. Now they expect to be equal to it used to be the brand is up here and you're here, and it's very transactional, and now it's moving to like they want to have a seat at the table. They want to be like, we're roommates hanging out. Even though it's your business, but I'm your customer and I want to be valued almost as an equal to you, and you can't get mad about that. You should be like, that's the mentality that people are being trained to have now and how they interact with brands. So you have to always adapt to them. And yes, you have to have a beginner's mind every day. Any day the market and our economy could change, you have to start over. Are you ready for that?
And that's what I was going to say. We've seen so many changes, especially over the last few years. And even the generations, when you look at the younger generation now, as you said, they expect a lot more from brands. How are you are adapting? What are you seeing differently? What are you having to do differently to run a successful business, to reach consumers or your audience today that maybe weren't doing even 5 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, more social media, that's to be expected. And we started a membership program where we have a text messaging kind of membership thing we're just launching. We actually have built an entire subscription program called Astropreneurs, helping people start businesses using their astrological charts, and some technology we developed to simplify the charts. You don't have to become an astrology expert, but you can still use the tools and guidance. And we have 120 people in our pilot program for it, because we say it's for what we call soul-centered entrepreneurs, people who want to either already have a business or want to have a passion-driven business. And it's so fun because they're having all these insights and getting permission to be the way they are. It's sort of maybe my karmic sort of thing to my younger self, I really felt so terrible when that magazine job didn't work out, because I'm an achiever. I'm a straight A student. I didn't want to disappoint anybody, but I just couldn't fit myself in. So people are coming now and they're like, there is another way to succeed without, denying who you are.
With younger generations, they're a lot more about that balanced life, in terms of not just about making money. They want their lifestyle to be, they'd rather make a little less money, maybe live in a little, smaller house, but they have that work-life balance. They have more of that person exchange, with their loved ones, or whatever it is that makes
Yeah.
them feel fulfilled. So, I
Mhm.
mean, obviously that must be changing a little bit in terms of, are people looking for, maybe things right away, because sometimes I think fast service kind of, people want it, they want it now. Are you
Yeah.
having to sort of adapt to that as well?
I think that, yes, there's definitely certain expectations, and um in the realm of social media, it's like a different time zone versus when someone's looking on the internet for something. But the internet is far from dead. It's just being used differently. It's like for information versus interaction. So you have to think of all the social media as like a lead magnet for your website or web property, and your web property is a lead magnet for your social persona and channels. So it's almost like there's a lot of people doing things in order to get more of this, or I have an ad-based business model, revenue model, so I better get on TikTok and get people to come look at my website. Well, that doesn't really work. You have to really focus on relationship building without a transactional end goal, and earn people's the whole know, like, and trust factor. And then they're going to be curious about what else you're doing. But you really, really have to try a lot more. It can be exhausting. Like, okay, I'm going to try this. Did anybody like it or did they not? One of the things we just taught our astropreneurs was like, you can't just, a lot of people are like expect to go right from like making people aware that they've hung their shingle to making a sale. They don't do the courtship. They don't go, I'm going to, give something in exchange for someone's email or phone number to text them, or, they really do think that, we had someone who was like, well, now I just built my website. Maybe I should go put some business cards out at the local cafe and hang some flyers. No, what you need to do is teach a free workshop locally if that's what you want to do. Like, why would you who's going to call you if you do that? A bunch of random people, you know,
Right.
go give in order to get.
Yep. And invest yourself. I mean, I think that's the best, as you said, not only meeting them everywhere, social on your website and however your other channels you're using, but also just doing it and starting off
Doing
small, whether it be, one person is using your product to then word of mouth
it.
and creating that. You talked about sort of that courtship, which is very vital,
Mhm.
obviously in business, but also in love. Well, I want to kind of
Yeah, it's very much like love. It's the same.
segue back to your show, Cosmic Love. Is that, did I say that
Yes.
correctly? Yes.
Yes.
On Prime Video, just launched, and it's just talk about. Well, first of all, what is it? Tell us what this
Yeah.
Love show, reality show is.
Yeah, so Cosmic Love is pretty much the first ever, Western astrology dating show that uses people's charts, birth charts, to help them match with someone who could be a potential spouse or soulmate. So we did it as a social experiment. For years I've talked to different TV producers, and the idea was always, you sit down and read someone's chart and then they're like, oh my god, that's so true, that's so me. But that's really boring to watch, like one person have an epiphany after they've heard a bunch of astrological jargon that doesn't make any sense. So what we did instead was kind of a bachelor style format. There was a big house in Malibu, beautifully decorated, and we used a special effect giant crystal ball room called the Astro Chamber. We had 4 main contestants, one of each of the elements of the zodiac: fire, earth, air, and water. They didn't really know a lot about astrology. And they lived in a house with 16 other people, 4 of whom were a match for each of them that they had to meet, date, eliminate. They didn't know the matches were only revealed. So it's to see, like, does physical chemistry have more weight than astrological compatibility? And they actually learned, while physical chemistry is definitely important, and of course it's TV, so they were all good looking anyway. You can not be lucky for them, they have that edge. But they found that they became attracted to people that they wouldn't have given a chance to, by hearing, oh, okay, I'm matched with this person because of this, let me go meet them and see if how that plays out. So you actually see these sort of deeper interactions on a reality dating show that you wouldn't. So it was a very fun way to do it. Like, so and then my sister and I recorded what's called X-ray videos for Amazon. So there's those little behind the scenes. So in each of the 10 episodes, there is an astrology lesson. So the person who's watching can be like, oh, what's my moon sign? And you can go and look it up and learn about it and learn about yourself.
Oh, that's very cool. And I
Yeah.
love that, like you said, you had pitched this kind of idea to different
Mhm.
producers before. Um, what was what made it finally happen? Was it the right timing? Was it
Yeah.
how you like talk about, because there are people, millions of people out there wanting to pitch their show, wanting think
Yeah.
they have this, and probably a lot of them are good ideas, but
Yeah.
it's still getting it out there. So talk about that
Yeah.
process.
Okay. I mean, this is the biggest cliche for an astrologer to say that timing is everything, but it is, because, you know, apps have made, people, there's an astrology app called CoStar that probably even some of the people watching this may have, and it's become wildly popular. I think it came out in like 2019. So all of a sudden, everyone in the world knows their whole birth chart. They don't know what it means usually, except but they know, like, oh, I have Mars in Gemini or something. So they're all dropping astrological jargon. I think since 2016 in a certain election, the world has become much more uncertain, and then the pandemic. So people are looking for answers. Religion has lost popularity, or gained it in other ways. But people, even so, we have a lot of people who are religious and still are looking for answers. And in this world of technology, everything has become so fast paced and stressful that we need tools like personality tests and other things to kind of help us stay afloat. So the timing of that was worked out perfectly, that there was suddenly astrology was having this moment, and so are reality dating shows, and they overlapped. But I don't think that the years that we pitched and other things were a waste. It's like every time you learn something from it. So but always be looking at, like, that door didn't get me in, all right, what's another door, and be patient. But sometimes it's the way you package it, or like maybe you're not communicating your idea in a way that sort of is hooked to the zeitgeist. Maybe it's not an idea that should be that is big enough for that. Maybe you want to go independent or do it on a smaller scale, and see if that takes off on its own. You never know. I mean, that can happen. So just don't try to, people get very attached and try to force it. No, I want to be on Oprah. That was a thing that was always, it's like you and every other freaking person on this planet. So hashtag goals. But in the meantime, how about a local news clip for yourself that builds up a body of work? And maybe that then gets picked up by regional or state or national. You never know. Just go where you're wanted. Go where journalists. I mean, when I was an editor at the magazine, and I was like, someone bring me a story worth writing about. There are lots of people that want to tell your story, but you're focused on this one place and you're missing all the gold in front of you. That's the people that succeed the most independently are just like picking up this low-hanging fruit that no one else wants because they all want to be on Bravo or Oprah or whatever. So
Yeah,
look
I
right
think
in front of you.
such a valuable point to say, the low hanging fruit, because that is where people are now. You can evolve into, and it can become part of what your idea is. And maybe your idea fits completely at the low hanging fruit. Who's to say? But
Yeah,
don't get lost in your big world that for this, for the sacrifice that at times
right.
doesn't go. Well,
Keep the goals, keep it on your vision board or whatever. But like that low hanging fruit is also very ripe and juicy and, surprisingly nourishing. So
well, on that note, Ophira, thank you so much. This is awesome. And like I said, I am a fan of astrology. I think I believe in it. So good luck
awesome.
with your show and all the best with that. And thank you again for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right. And thank you for watching. And as I always ask, if you have any women marketers that you want to hear more about, or maybe there's someone you work with and you want their story told, let me know. I will do my best because I'd love to have them as well. So thank you. And Ophira, thank you again.
Thank you.